They had a confirmed ticket. They showed up early. They did everything they honestly believed they were supposed to do. And still, the gate agent looked up from the computer and said the sentence no older traveler ever expects to hear. I'm sorry, you won't be able to board this flight. No raised voices, no negotiation, no, let me see what I can do. Just a closed door and a plane they were supposed to be on pulling away. This isn't about weather delays or last-minute gate changes. This is about something much more serious. Beginning in 2026, quiet but very real changes to airport rules are hitting travelers over 70 the hardest. People are being turned away, not because they willfully broke the rules, but because they never knew the rules had changed. That's the frightening part. Your years of experience don't protect you. Decades of flying don't protect you. Even a smooth trip last year doesn't guarantee anything now. The rulebook you trusted has been rewritten, and most people will only find out after they're standing at the gate watching their plane leave without them. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what's happening, why older travelers are getting caught in systems that don't explain themselves, and how one small detail, a single document, a missing symbol on your ID, an unchecked box in your booking, can quietly wipe out an entire trip before it even begins. If you're over 70 or you're helping a parent or grandparent fly in 2026, what you're about to hear may be the difference between a calm, ordinary travel day and the shock of being told you're not allowed to board. My name is Sophia, and I'm sharing this because I've seen what it looks like when these new rules collide with real people. I've watched confusion turn to panic at security. I've watched older travelers do everything they thought was right and still lose their seat because the policy moved and no one bothered to tell them. These are not rumors. They are not once-in-a-lifetime edge cases. They are real situations that are already happening with frequency as 2025 and 2026 enforcement standards roll out. The hardest part to accept is that almost every one of these denials could have been avoided with the right information a few days or weeks in advance. That's why I'm going to go through this carefully in plain language with no scare tactics, just the specific things you need to check before you ever roll a suitcase into the terminal. Some of this may surprise you. Some of it may make you a little uncomfortable. But all of it is meant to protect you, your trip, and your peace of mind. Because after 70, the last thing you should have to worry about is being blindsided by fine print that no one took the time to explain. Here's the truth a lot of people don't want to admit. The reason so many travelers over 70 are being turned away isn't because they suddenly forgot how airports work. It's because airports themselves don't work the way they used to. Human judgment has been replaced by automated checks. Identity verification, security screening, and boarding approval are now driven by software and databases. Gate agents and TSA officers have much less room to make an exception, even when they want to. Older travelers are especially at risk because many of these changes slid in quietly. There weren't letters in the mail, there weren't clear warning screens when you booked. The websites didn't flash a red box saying, if you're over 70, you must do this differently now. So you show up assuming that what worked for you for 20, 30, 40 years will work again. And then you're told something critical is missing. No warning, just a wall. To make it worse, enforcement doesn't always tighten everywhere at the same time. One traveler sails through in January, tells their friends it's the same as always, and by March the rules are being applied strictly at their home airport. That inconsistency creates a dangerous illusion. If it was fine for them, it will be fine for me. It might not be when a rule flips from occasionally enforced to absolutely enforced. There's often no public countdown. It just happens. And for the people flying on that day, there is no leniency. At that point, it doesn't matter how long you've flown, how polite you are, or how important the trip is. The system is only checking one thing. Are all of the requirements exactly as written today? Satisfied or not? That's the shift almost no one is talking about. And it's why careful early preparation matters more now than at any other point in modern air travel. Let's start with the single biggest reason older travelers are being denied boarding. The one factor that by itself has caused more missed flights than traffic jams, weather, and crowded lines combined. Your identification specifically, whether it meets the current federal standard. For many years, a basic driver's license was all you needed to board a domestic flight. If it was current, that was enough. That's no longer true. As of May 2025, federal Real ID requirements are in full force, and by 2026, enforcement will be strict and universal. That means if your license is not Real ID compliant, TSA will not accept it for boarding a domestic flight. You will be stopped before you even see the gate. A lot of seniors are getting caught here because they renewed their license some years ago and assumed renewed means updated to all new standards. It doesn't. The only thing that matters now is whether your license carries the Real ID symbol. You can check this in less than 30 seconds. Take your license out and look in the upper corner on the front. You should see a star, often inside a circle or sometimes cut into the shape of your state. The exact design varies from state to state. If there is no star on your license, it is W Naughty Real ID compliant, and that license will not get you through TSA for a domestic flight after full enforcement begins. There are no one-time exceptions. No temporary passes at the checkpoint. No, I didn't know. Can we just do it this once? TSA officers don't have the authority to override this, even if they want to. I've watched older travelers stand there in disbelief, holding an ID that has been their primary proof of identity for decades, being told that for flying purposes it might as well be a library card. One woman came 3 hours early just in case and still never got on the plane. Her license looked perfectly valid to her because in everyday life it still was, but it lacked the Real ID star and no one at the DMV had ever told her that mattered. Here's the good news. If your license isn't Real ID compliant, you still have options. A valid U.S. passport or passport card will be accepted for domestic flights. If you have one that's current, you can use it instead of your license. If you don't, you will need to either apply for or renew a passport or go to the DMV to upgrade your license to Real ID status. Either route takes time. Passport processing can stretch beyond what websites promise. DMV appointments in many states are booking weeks ahead as more people rush to update. This is one of those details that is painless to fix now and brutal to discover at the airport. So, check your license today, hot pecho. If you don't see that star, make a plan. Don't wait until the week of your flight. If this is already raising things you hadn't thought about, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this series. And let me know in the comments, are you over 70 yourself or helping a parent or grandparent prepare to fly? That helps me tailor what I focus on next, because ID is only the first trap. The second one catches seniors in a completely different way. There's a lot of confusion around medical documentation. At airports, rumors travel fast and half-truth stories spread quickly in waiting areas. Let's clear one big myth right now. You do not need a doctor's note just because you are over 70. Airlines cannot legally deny you boarding based on age alone. However, the rules did tighten in a more specific area, and that's where people are being caught off guard. If you need certain forms of medical support or assistance when you travel, airlines now require advanced medical clearance for those specific situations. This includes using supplemental oxygen on the flight, traveling with certain medical devices that interact with aircraft systems, having a condition that, in the airline's judgment, could reasonably lead to an in-flight medical emergency. Toward the end of 2025, many carriers quietly standardized and hardened these rules. By 2026, gate agents are instructed not to eyeball whether you'll be okay. If the required form isn't already attached to your booking, they are supposed to err on the side of caution, and that can mean refusing boarding. What makes this extra confusing is that every airline uses different terms for the same thing. One calls it a MEDIF, medical information form. Another hides it under special assistance. Another uses fitness to fly clearance. Different labels, same concept. In almost every case, it means a form completed and signed by your doctor, confirming you are medically fit to travel by air. And almost always that form must be submitted. 48. 72 hours before your flight, not at check-in, not at the gate, well before the day of travel. If you show up needing oxygen or with visible serious medical support and there is no clearance on file, the agent may decide they cannot safely take you. The safest approach is straightforward. If you use oxygen, require a wheelchair beyond short walking distances, or have a serious heart, lung, or neurological condition, call the airline in advance. You don't need to share your entire medical story. Use a simple sentence. I need to submit medical clearance documentation for my upcoming flight. Can you send me the form you require? They will send a link or a document. You take it to your doctor, get it completed, send it back by the deadline, and the note is attached to your reservation. If you're basically healthy and traveling without special support, you don't need this. But if you're at all unsure, it's much better to have paperwork you don't end up needing than to need it and not have it. Now, let's move to something almost everyone over 70 deals with: prescription medications. This may sound minor compared to ID and medical forms, but in practice, medication issues cause a huge amount of stress and in some cases denied access to essential drugs. By 2026, TSA is enforcing stricter standards for how medications, especially controlled substances and liquids, are brought through security. The habit that trips people up most often is the weekly pill organizer. Those plastic boxes with compartments for each day or time of day. Very handy at home. Not ideal at the checkpoint. Officers now need to be able to confirm quickly that medications belong to you and are legal prescriptions. A handful of loose pills in a travel case doesn't give them that. The safest practice is simple. Bring prescription meds in their original pharmacy labeled containers. The label should show your full name, the name of the medication, dosage, and prescribing doctor. If you don't want to travel with a full monthly supply, ask your pharmacist to prepare a smaller labeled bottle just for the trip. Many will do this without extra charge if you explain you're flying. Always, always keep your medications in your carry-on. Checked bags get delayed, rerouted, sometimes lost. Your heart pills, blood pressure tablets, or insulin cannot disappear with them. For medically necessary liquids, insulin, certain suspensions, or liquid antibiotics, you are allowed to exceed the normal 3.4-ounce liquid rule, but you must put them in a separate bag and declare them to TSA. At the start of screening, say, "I have medically necessary liquids in my bag." They may test them. It takes a couple of minutes and then you're done. For injectables like insulin pens or emergency injectors, carrying a printout of your prescription or a brief note from your doctor isn't legally required, but it helps immensely if an officer has questions. I've seen long delays vanish when a traveler pulled out one simple page. None of this exists to punish you. It's about security policy updates. But when you know the rules in advance, the whole process becomes routine instead of overwhelming. Once you navigate documents and medication, you reach the part of the airport many seniors dread most: the security line. You might imagine it as chaotic, rushed, and physically demanding, but there are built-in accommodations that older travelers often don't even know they have. One of the most important is this: if you are a 75 or older, TSA policy allows you to keep your shoes on during standard screening. You don't need to pay extra or sign up for anything. You just need to let the officers know. When you reach the front of the line, you can say, "I'm 75." And keep your shoes and light jacket on, unless specifically told otherwise for a special reason. This is a huge help if bending, balancing on one foot, or unlacing shoes is difficult or painful. If you're over 70 but not yet 75 and the idea of security line still feels intimidating, this is when programs like TSA PreCheck are worth a close look. PreCheck lets you keep shoes, belts, and light jackets on, leave laptops and small electronics in your bag. Use a generally shorter, calmer line. It costs a set fee for 5 years, which, when you break it down, is a small monthly amount. And many travel-oriented credit cards now reimburse that fee automatically. Before you pay out of pocket, log into your card account and check the benefits. You may already be eligible without knowing it. Less time in line, less standing, fewer awkward movements. Those aren't luxuries. They can be the difference between arriving at your gate relaxed and arriving there completely worn out. Now let's talk about boarding itself, where pride, politeness, and not wanting to be a bother often lead seniors to skip a protection that exists specifically for them. Airlines are required under federal law to offer pre-boarding for passengers who need extra time or assistance, whether due to age, mobility, or health. That doesn't mean every airline announces seniors can board now. Usually you'll hear something vague like those needing extra time or assistance. Many older travelers hesitate. They don't want people staring. They don't want to feel like they're asking for something special. Please hear this clearly. Pre-boarding is not cutting the line. It is not charity. It is a safety procedure. If you walk more slowly, use a cane or walker, feel unsteady in crowds, need longer to stow a bag or sit down, simply feel anxious about being rushed in a narrow aisle, then pre-boarding is meant for you. You don't need paperwork. You don't need to explain a diagnosis. When boarding is about to start, walk to the gate counter and say, "I'd like to request pre-boarding because I need extra time to get settled." That's all the agent will add a note. And when pre-boarding is called, you'll be invited first with a small group. From the crew's perspective, this is better for everyone. You are seated safely. Your bag is stored with help if you need it, and the aisle is clear before the crowd arrives. I have seen what happens when someone who clearly needs more time waits for their assigned group to be called out of politeness. The aisle fills. People press forward. Overhead bins run out of space. The older passenger feels rushed, tries to move quickly, and suddenly the risk of a fall or strain skyrockets. 5 minutes earlier. With pre-boarding, none of that would have happened. If you use a cane, walker, or wheelchair, there's another piece you should prepare for: how your device will be screened. This will be, since 2025, TSA has updated procedures for mobility aids. That means canes, walkers, and wheelchairs are often swabbed for explosive residue, sent through a separate scanner, inspected manually. This isn't because you are suspected of anything. It's just the standard protocol now. But if you're not expecting it, it can feel intrusive. As you approach security, say, "I use a mobility device and I'll need some assistance with screening." They'll direct you to the most appropriate lane. If you can walk through the metal detector safely, they may ask you to do that while they check your device. If you cannot stand or walk unaided, you have the right to be screened while seated. You can say, "I need to remain seated for screening due to mobility limitations." That phrase signals a formal accommodation. If at any point you feel rushed or confused, you can ask for a supervisor. Supervisors are trained on how these situations should be handled and can slow things down and clarify what's happening. If your walker or wheelchair folds and you're able, collapsing it before you reach the front makes the whole process smoother. If you can't manage that yourself, ask. Officers can help. The key is communication. You do not need to push yourself beyond what's safe to keep up with others. Now, wheelchair assistance across the airport. This is one of the most misunderstood services and one of the biggest reasons older travelers miss flights. That on paper they should have made easily. Many people assume you can simply show up, ask for a wheelchair at the curb or check-in, and be rolled to your gate. That used to be closer to reality. Now, wheelchair services are typically provided by outside contractors, and staffing is based almost entirely on advance requests. If you arrive needing help, but never requested it in your booking, there may not be anyone available quickly. I've watched waits go from 15 minutes to 45, especially during busy times. When you're booking your flight online or by phone, look for an option called Wheelchair Assistance or Mobility Assistance under Special Services. Select it. If you're talking to an agent, say, "I'll need wheelchair assistance from check-in to the gate and from the gate to baggage claim on arrival." If your ticket is already booked, call the airline now and have it added. Don't leave it for the day of travel. And remember, wheelchair assistance in U.S. airports is free. Airlines cannot charge you for it. You're not taking something away from anyone else. You are using a protected service. If you choose to tip the attendant, that's up to you. The assistance itself, though, is part of your rights as a passenger needing accommodation. Now, let's address something that affects far more people than visible mobility issues. Invisible disabilities. Not every struggle is obvious. You might look perfectly capable walking through the terminal, but still be dealing with chronic pain, arthritis, shortness of breath, balance problems, anxiety in large crowds, mild cognitive issues, or fatigue. These conditions are real. They are taken seriously under disability law, even if no one can see them. But airlines and security officers are not allowed to assume. They can't look at you and guess. That means if you need extra help or extra time, you have to say so. You do not need to give a detailed medical explanation. You can say, "I have a disability that isn't immediately visible, and I need focus on the accommodation, not the diagnosis." Most of what seniors reasonably ask for, early boarding, wheelchair support, a little more time, and escort through busy areas, falls well within what's considered reasonable. Suffering in silence to prove you can handle it isn't courage. It's unnecessary. These systems are supposed to work for you, not against you. Before we wrap up, here's a small habit that flight crews quietly wish every older solo traveler would adopt because it makes a big difference in emergencies. And it doesn't cost you a thing. If you're over 70 and traveling alone, tell a flight attendant as you board. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a calm, friendly sentence. Hi, I'm traveling alone today. Just wanted to let you know in case I need a little help. That's it. You're not labeling yourself. You're not handing over control. You are giving the crew awareness. It means if there's sudden turbulence, they're more likely to check on you quickly. If you're standing longer than usual, someone will notice. If you seem unsteady or confused later in the flight, you're not just another face to overlook. You're not asking to be fussed over, you're quietly building a safety net. I've seen that one sentence make all the difference during delays, medical issues, and confusing gate changes. Let's bring this all together. You now know how to check if your ID meets current real ID standards and what to do if it doesn't, when and why medical clearance is needed, and how to get the correct forms before you travel, how to pack and declare prescriptions and medical liquids so they don't become a problem at security, which security accommodations you're automatically entitled to by age and when programs like precheck are worth considering, how and when to ask for pre-boarding without feeling guilty or ashamed, what to expect if you use a mobility aid and how to make screening more comfortable and predictable, why wheelchair assistance must be requested ahead of time and that it's your right, not a favor, that invisible conditions are still valid reasons to request help, and how to ask without oversharing, and how a single quiet heads up to the flight crew can make traveling alone safer and calmer. None of this is designed to scare you away from flying. It's meant to replace uncertainty with preparation. The rules changed, the environment changed. That is beyond your control. What is in your control is whether you walk into that environment blindly or informed and ready. Before your next trip, take a little time to check your ID, confirm what your airline requires, pack your medications correctly, request the assistance you need, and practice saying calmly and clearly what support you're entitled to. You have every right to travel safely, comfortably, and with dignity at any age. If there's a particular part of flying that worries you most, security lines, long walks, managing oxygen or insulin, boarding, turbulence, tell me in the comments. I do read them, and your questions shape what I cover next. If this helped you, please share it with someone who might need it. A parent, a friend, a neighbor who's planning a trip. One conversation like this can prevent a missed flight, a ruined event, or a dangerous situation. You deserve peace of mind when you travel.